All right, F it. We're going to do it live. It's one of those things. Just trying to get a live stream notification out, and apparently it's stressing out the Chromebook and it's not cooperating. No big deal. And I didn't pay my premium on X. I didn't give Pope Elon his tithe, which means basically that we're not going to be live on Twitter tonight. But that's not a big deal either. These are not big deals. Just pointing it out, we're on like 3 different YouTube channels, and that really should suffice. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the main YouTube channel right now. And if you're in there, you will be getting a magic blue wrench. Unless you're a troll or a main streamer, you're going to get in. So, and by the way, there's a hot link if you want to go to just infiniteplane.live. That will take you right to the pertinent channel. And I'm heading there right now with a bucket full of wrenches. See a couple commenters, Waco Soto and Busy56. So I cranked on like 3 old channels with the hopes that it would bring in people who have maybe lost their way and bring them back into the fold. Okay, here we are. All right. Hope you like the new tank, paid for by the IPS Think Tank members. I'm actually inside of it. That's why it's kind of dark in here. I was over by the river painting trees, and it just seems like if I hang out there too long, the cops show up, and I'm not really one for drama, so I leave. All right, what's up, Alan Henfrey? Says keep up the good work. So it turns out I'm not logged into the right account because Chromebooks are whack, and I will not be able to hand out wrenches at this moment. AZZ7ECH says, what channel is this? This is Infinite Plane Radio. This is really the only live podcast think tank with what is termed an off-world stage perspective. And you're not going to really find it anywhere else. It may not be your thing. It's mostly good news. It's like the opposite of the black pill. But people seem to prefer the black pill. Observing Reality says I'm muted on your main. Okay, I'll have to go and fix that. Somebody must have done that. Don't know who. So we've been talking about history bending and how that's the next thing. That is the next point of focus. And if you're not up to speed with history bending, now is the time. Because if you believe that there are simulated events or psyops, if you believe those even exist, well, then you're already acknowledging that it's a scripted historic event planned in advance. And we're talking about the proactive creation of history. So you've already swallowed that premise. You already go with that. You already know it's true. That fake news ultimately is fake history, and they are therefore proactively creating our history. But what we're revealing here, that's the intention of this ongoing kind of a thought experiment, but I think we're just testing our model, is that we can logically deduce the relative age of each psyop. So something happens on the news tomorrow. How many years ago was that planned? And we have plenty of reasons. A lot of it comes down to sussing out the common denominators in every different instance of predictive programming for said event, and see how far back the earliest instances of all these common denominators exist. Because there were some facets that were more emphasized in the later content with the CK assassination than the earlier stuff. Like the widow stuff was kind of toward the end, but still all connected, fascinatingly connected. Plain Decoded says, where are you? I told you I'm in the tank. It's on the screen. That's not AI. That's a real tank. The think tank has kind of assembled mostly as a raft because we were quarantined from the world stage. And the raft is buoyant on the sea of mistis, information, irrelevance. But we've already hit the beaches. I don't know what D-Day was, maybe 9/10, because that's when things really kicked off. I mean, when did we actually launch this thing onto the stage itself, where we decided we need to start imposing MSM minus standards on Trutherville? I guess it was the Charlie Kirk thing, because so many people have been caught up in these well-paved rabbit trails, thinking Candace Owens is an investigator, like Sherlock Holmes, like she's out there investigating. No, she's dropping engineered narratives at predetermined intervals. She's an actress. IPS think tank is way cooler than the Alex Jones armored vehicle, says Observing Reality. I'd play chicken. I'd put the IPS think tank against his armored vehicle. I hope the Sandy Hookers don't take it. They're trying to take everything from him to make an example that we shouldn't call stuff fake, because they'll take all our stuff. Yeah, come take all my stuff. And it's also a civil thing. I mean, the guy didn't commit a crime. He committed a thought crime, but not a crime. And it's a civil thing. And I don't even think it's valid. It's been rejected before. The whole premise of it is ridiculous. Like, you're telling me that you're talking on the radio, somebody does something, and now you're going to be sued for $1 billion for something that you don't even believe. Like, it doesn't even add up. It's sort of like Armalite. Why do they pay all the money to that family? Well, because they're complicit in the psyop. If Jones was really concerned about having his armored vehicle repoed or something, or seized, I'm pretty sure he would just double down on the fakery. That would really devastate the other side, because the facts are on that side of things. The facts are on the side of it being a staged thing. He's not going there for the same reason Candace Owens isn't talking about the squib. The squib deployed on 9/10. Let's see here. Yes, exactly. Neighbors. Alex Jones's neighbors ass beef jerky strips in his tank. It's a South Pole reference. South Pole got destroyed by the insurrection. We were like 3 or 4 seasons deep. We had like 20 different voiceover artists, animation 24/7. It was ridiculously productive and fun. And then we satirized January 6th because we saw it for the clown show, the joke that it was. But then all of a sudden it was taken seriously. It was like, it wasn't taken seriously that day. It was funny. The whole thing was funny. But it was theater. I mean, you could, if you didn't know, by the way, if you think January 6th was real, you should know that Trump was still talking to his cult members when the thing started. And it was a 45-minute walk from there to from the ellipse to the Capitol Hill. So it wasn't the same crowd. There were no normies caught up in that. It was effectively a closed movie set. Yeah, now there's a scanned call-in QR code on the top left. It actually looks like an eyeball, doesn't it? Do you see it? If you look at the QR code, it looks like an eyeball, like an eye, like the Illuminati. If you scan the Illuminati eye in the top left, it will add you to the stream. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. Fakeologist does it all the time. But I'm using Restream right now because I'm in the process of consolidating. You know, we want to send out that bat signal onto the cloud, the penguin signal. We need to consolidate off-world stage. And off-world stage is very easy to define. You're either there or you're not. It depends on whether or not you recognize the world stage as an optional model, as a worldview, an internalized worldview that is the real world plus augmentations brought to you via the PSYOP entertainment complex, namely hyperstitions. Things that are introduced through psyops tend to be things that don't actually exist, but they exist in the popular imagination. They exist in the realm of media, and the echo chamber reinforces their existence. Kind of like space junk and aliens, whatever they want to exist at that time, and then they can de-exist them. Because I noticed that like radical Islamic terrorists ceased to exist at some point. They just like cut the funding for that particular act, that acting troupe. What's up, Penguinati Auto Hoaxer? See a lot of you members here, by the way. Appreciate your support of the channel. We are going places with this tank. Plain Dakota says, how can I get a QR code off my phone though I'm watching on my phone? I think what you would have to do in that instance is screen cap it and then go to your photos and then click on the QR code. I think that's how you activate it. There's actually a link. I don't know if I wrote it below, but there might be an actual hyperlink. But our objective here is just to get the routine going first. And it'll be pretty quick before we're doing it full blown, live stream, open phones. I talk for an hour and we do 2 hours of phone calls if the interest is there. And I don't really have a schedule. I don't obey any rules. I'm just sort of in this place. I don't know what you call it, freedom or something. So I'm not opposed to staying up all night if we do get back-to-back calls. Because if you remember, the tendency is the numbers increase hour by hour. It's not like it goes up and it wanes. It's the longer we stay on, the more interest it tends to generate. And we have plans to accelerate this. Lost Age says, I was expecting X to be full of HARP bots after that hurricane in Jamaica. Yeah, alt climate change. Yeah, if you believe in chemtrails, the best you can say is you believe in chemtrails. It's essentially a superstition. I was talking about this earlier, like the Atlas thing. Ufology doesn't exist. It's not an ology. It's not a rigorous field of study. It is, in fact, a superstition. Chemtrails are a superstition wrapped up in like 15 different logical fallacies. Like, I think everybody should learn how to deconstruct the chemtrail superstition / conspiracy theory as an exercise in rhetoric and logic, because it's very clever. You got loaded questions, appeals to ignorance. You've got appeal to motive is a pretty heavy part of it. Faulty causality catches everybody. Faulty causality is a big one. That one will have you boiling vinegar in your front yard, thinking you're making the skies turn blue. You can ask Crow 77777 about that. And he'll never let it go. He will forever think that boiling vinegar made the, quote, chemtrails go away. It's like this notion of because A is before B, A caused B, that's faulty causality. But that actually hits people with the chemtrail thing. They see a plane, they see the lines, then it rains, and they think, oh, the planes brought the rain. Not quite. The planes left persistent trails, which indicated that rain was likely to happen that day. But it's easy to understand it. It's easy to understand how people arrive at these faulty conclusions. That's why it's a useful exercise. One of the cleverest ones to me, I still think, is the loaded question. What are they spraying? Because they throw in the premise it's a spray. And that's an easily debunkable claim right there if you think about the volume of content you would need to create these sustained lines for hundreds of miles. But it's not a spray. It's more easily explained as of course, hot exhaust interacting with rarefied air at 30,000 feet. Not hard to explain. The answers are there. It's been well documented. It's well understood. And what's more, it's predictable. Whereas, quote, chemtrails are not. But it's, again, it's useful as an exercise. So if you're still suffering from chemtrail phobia, sky phobia, you might want to look into this, because even though it's fake, it doesn't mean it can't hurt you. You could psychosomatically pick up a case of chemtrail lung. Observing Reality says, Brennan coming in and asking about stratospheric aerosol injections. Is that an appeal to authority, ignorance, or both? Okay, well, first of all, they say stratospheric aerosol injections because it sounds more credible than chemtrails. And aerosol injections is not what's happening. They're not spraying anything. There's no injection. It's hot air, more or less passively reacting with it's hot exhaust acting with the cool air. It's not a spray like bug spray. It's not an aerosol injection. No, it's just hot air. It's actually as silly as watching motorboats and they have a wake behind them and be like, what are they dumping in the water? Well, it's really just an environmental disturbance. It's not a perfect analogy, but what I'm saying is it's perfectly explainable, and it does not require a mysterious injection, a mysterious chemical. There's nothing being injected. That's the bottom line. So no, they're disingenuous and they're pandering to their ignorant base. And likely they're ignorant. Like Marjorie Taylor Greene, probably ignorant. She probably believes in Jewish space lasers. Can you address Flat Earth Reset? Yeah, Flat Earth Reset died, unfortunately. And I mean that, just because I disagree with somebody online or somebody's trying to ruin me and cost me a lot of money and mess things up, doesn't mean I want them dead. Because I want them to live to see how everything turns out. I think everybody should stay till the end of the movie. I mean, I wasn't really thinking about the person, actually. He put out a spate of videos. He drove Patricia Steer off the internet after he came up with some weird theories about her. Very obsessed. I mean, this guy actually dressed up as her and cooked in a kitchen using her voice. I mean, he went totally Norman Bates. He went crazy over her. But I figured out who he was. I got his real name by accident. What happened was, after he passed, he let a few things lapse, and I got a few of his email addresses through Spokeo. So if you've ever annoyed me or bothered me or stalked me, chances are I probably have your information in one of these sites, and it's just showing up whenever you move or whatever. I like to keep tabs on people who keep tabs on me. And I was like, why is he slipping? Suddenly I know his name. I'm not going to say it. I looked him up. I even found him on a local news thing in Sacramento. He had won a lottery at a at one of these corner stores, which is kind of shady, I think. I think the lottery's rigged. But anyway, yeah, it turns out he is, in fact, deader than Charlie Kirk, that's for sure. All right, let's continue. I was going to talk about how he woke up one night with a prolapsed esophagus. He thought he had a frog in his throat and he couldn't do live streams anymore, and how sad that was. But yeah, I didn't want him to die. Not my fault. Like I said, I want everyone to make it to the end of the movie, because I don't think it's even like halfway through yet. Like, I think what's happening now represents a significant divergence from where things were supposed to go. And I'm not saying it's just us, but I think a lot of people, as evidenced by this Charlie Kirk thing, I think there's a great number of people who aren't falling into the duopoly. Like, either it was Antifa or it was Israel. There's a lot of people who are saying, I don't think he's even dead. And if you ask 10 follow-up questions to that, you will have unraveled far more than just this one event. Jamerid May says, have you ever looked into the Resident Evil games for predictive programming? They released a new trailer for the newest installment called Requiem. I need people who play video games to chime in, because I generally don't. But I have looked into the symbolism, like the character Alice, and she lives in the underground base. There's a lot of Alice in Wonderland programming in a lot of these movies for some reason. And that's a whole other topic that's worth getting into, though, as we do our history bending breakdowns, we should look at these various characters and archetypes that are like reoccurring. For example, the Alice in Wonderland, Dorothy type characters. I think they're all representative of like Persephone going into the underworld. But these are reoccurring themes in so many movies. It's worth looking at. I mean, they even threw the Alice in Wonderland into the Matrix with Follow the White Rabbit. Like, what is that about? And I think it's somewhat ironic that truthers follow rabbit trails. It's like that's right there. It's telling you you're going into Wonderland. Like you're getting your info from the Mad Hatter. You're not going closer to reality. You're going into a deeper layer, a subset of the mainstream programming. How big was the lottery prize? I'll have to look through the dossier and I'll get you the link if you want to see it. I was trying to find more information about it, but I kind of gave up once I found out he left. And not to Crisis Actor Island. But there's some people that I know who I think aren't really dead, who I think faked their deaths. We could name names. I think there's a few truthers, like well-known truthers, who faked COVID deaths. And there was a few I've seen. A lot of crisis actors just came out of it. Now, a lot of them were just probably opportunistic, just playing along with it. All right, let's see what else we got here. Going through your comments. Observing Reality to Lost Age says, good observation. That is one of the latest natural disasters that conspiracy theorists haven't latched bad blood onto. Yeah, I get tired of all the weather weapon stuff. I'm glad it seems to be dying down. You remember they called Erica Kirk the Storm at that event? Stephen Miller called her the Storm. Ties into the Tempest, Hurricane Jezebel. Storm is one of the repeated elements in all of the predictive content for that event, including the show The Tempest. But after the event, somebody fished around. They were just kind of floating around the idea that it should be Vice President Kirk, that she should run with J.D. Vance. So these ideas and memes are floating around. Well, right now, tonight, Erica Kirk is at TPUSA, and the vice president's there. And remember, the vice president was riding his coffin on 9/11. Excellent PR stunt. Like, hey, can we get a rush on this autopsy and embalming so we can parade the body around on 9/11? Like, it's in poor taste if it was real. The fact that it's fake, it's still in poor taste. But when you look at it, it's like, wait a minute here. People are floating that around. He's in her circle. And this all ties into Heads of State 2025, where the actress who was next to Charlie Kirkland in Snake Eyes when he got shot in the neck, the actress in this 2025 show who gets shot in the neck is Vice President Kirk. It's Elizabeth Kirk, not Erica. Dinah Southard says Stormy Daniels. Yeah, there's something of a resemblance there. But what is up with the storm? The storm, I think, was all. At first, I thought maybe it's all just leading to the Capitol. Storm the Capitol. That might have been the whole point of it. Foreshadowing. The first time I really noticed Storm being inserted into the right wing was Dylan Storm Roof. Was kind of a prototype for these like neo-Nazi right-wing racist shooters. But then it was Trump who said, this is the calm before the storm. And people correlated that with a Q drop. Remember Q drops? There's still some Q people out there. They're not as boosted. I think it was all artificially boosted. Like just the diehard true believers. The agents have moved on to other projects. I don't know what they're pushing now, but they're probably pushing Candace Owens right now and Nick Fuentes in that drama. But there's still some authentic Q people, dedicated or addicted, and I see their posts at times. They're the ones who want Trump to run in 2028. Like they just live in this fantasy. It kind of reminds me of those people who worship like Princess Diana. And a lot of them honestly do worship Princess Diana. In fact, there's this Q conspiracy theory that she's the mother of Barron Trump. Imagine finding that interesting. Like, imagine hearing that Barron Trump's mom is Diana, Princess Diana, and then just getting all happy about it. Like, sorry, I'm not even in that universe. I'm not adjacent to that universe. I don't understand that. And it's also something of a betrayal because she was also hooking up with JFK Jr., who's supposedly Trump's best friend behind the scenes. What's up, Kate Crash? Diana Southard, exactly. She found the Q drop emojis. You may have seen those. The kind of Hershey Kisses shaped things with faces. Yeah. No, it is all, it is a bunch of BS. It was the entire time it was a hoax. And this is what I don't get is where are all these ex QAnon people looking for answers? Like, hey, we were brainwashed for years. We were hooked on hopium. We were promised a great awakening, med beds, and universal basic income, and none of it happened. They were promised mass executions. Do you know how many of these people, these Q people, would talk about this incoming time when on every TV screen all around the world there'd be an emergency broadcast and everybody would have to watch the crimes of the deep state and their subsequent execution by the military. Like they were waiting for this, like these mass executions. Like it's a very bloodthirsty religion. So in that respect, it's kind of a typical thing, but it is definitely a religion where they are fanatical. It's good versus evil, and they have this great awakening apocalypse where it sounds like a great awakening, but the great awakening sounds like a massive political purge, mass murder, revenge fantasies. I mean, it's really quite sick. We have a lame duck named Donald. Yeah, have you seen that meme of Donald Duck? If you flip it upside down, it looks exactly like Donald Trump. Like, how does that happen? How did the planet Pluto magically appear at the same time that the Disney dog Pluto came out? And the dog Pluto's head is stamped on the planet. I mean, the silhouette's clearly there. If you haven't seen it, Pluto the dog's head is on the planet Pluto. Because we live in the Disney universe. Planet Netflix. Per Fox News, 3,300 flights were delayed due to government shutdown. Well, they can hype up anything. Do you remember the derailment in East Palestine, Ohio? After that, it was like every other day was a train derailment. I'm like, whoa, what's going on? This has got to be terrorism or some kind of psyop. They're just knocking all the trains off the rails. Well, then it turns out that there's like 1,500 derailings a day or something. It's just a common thing. They just choose to focus on it. They can inflate the appearance that it's a big thing. Lily Bell says EBT is driving everyone insane. You mean the food that they're getting? Or the fact that they're going to have their grocery money cut for a month? Like, what's the big deal? I don't think anybody is going to go into riot mode because they can't buy a few extra boxes of Twinkies. We're just talking about a month, tops. The states will fill in. Food banks will fill in. I don't think people are going to incriminate themselves and burn down Walmarts because they can't get a few extra. Here we go. Boxes of donuts or whatever they're getting. Energy drinks. Leo the Squib says 67 is the thing at the moment. 33 is opposite, the angels that didn't fall. Oh, interesting. Hadn't thought about that. I've noticed this 67 thing. I've heard it mentioned by like normies around me. So like the mind virus is spreading. The MAIDS patients are passing it on. That's how you know somebody's got MAIDS, where they're just a passive receptacle for any meme, any mind virus, and then they automatically reflexively try to pass it on to everybody else. I didn't look too much into it or its possible esoteric significance, I'm more struck by the strange Alejandro Kirk stuff, the baseball player. Nothing to do with Charlie Kirk, and yet the timing of him, his headlines, the references to the pain in his neck, and the Gatorade being thrown at him, and it looks like it's gushing out of his neck. It just seems like they widely disperse the imagery to any particular platform, so it's everywhere all at once. And if you think that sounds crazy, we're talking about product placement. We're talking about Edward Bernays level influence operations, but far more sophisticated than that. We're talking many decades of development. I would even suggest looking at a clip of the movie Focus with Will Smith. Look up Focus Will Smith 55. And it has this scene where they're trying to get the other gambler to select the player number 55. So they arrange for a number of things to happen where on his way to the game, everywhere he goes, the number 55 is in his field of view. He's hearing it on the radio. He's seeing it on shirts. People are saying it, objects in that, 5 and 5. It's everywhere. And the idea here is that through the weight of their repeated suggestions, he would hyper focus on the number 55. Commenter says, not sure how I ever got subbed here, but it sounds like endless unconnected ramblings of a conspiracy. Well, it's actually connected ramblings of a conspiracy, and it is indeed endless. We don't know how far ago it started, and it's not going to end anytime soon. But what we have discerned here over the years is that fake news is not just influencing political opinions, but fake news is actually a built-in strategy. In other words, it's systemic, and fake events, simulated events, analogous to reality TV, but treated as real. Fake events are employed, like historic events of any significance are likely staged. And not only that, but these things are scheduled long in advance. And so what we've been doing is we're reverse engineering, more or less, the fake event and the associated content within entertainment that builds up this echo chamber that I'm talking about. And by looking at this and the common denominators, we're trying to determine how far back was A or B or C, whatever event we're talking about, planned. So it is a conspiracy that, and this is the only real conspiracy. Forget every other conspiracy theory out there. If they're real, they're limited hangouts, not the full story, but mostly they're fake. The only real conspiracy that we should be talking about right now is the fact that our history is being curated, that there's a monopoly over worldview, and it's supplanted and replaced religion. That's its main utility. It's government by, well, total media control. It's not just news control, it's entertainment control, but it's pretty powerful. It's basically bread and circuses 2025. So we talk about these events that are deemed significant on the world stage. Everybody talks about them. Charlie Kirk getting shot in the neck. Well, what we're suggesting is that that event was planned back in the mid 90s. Like at least. It was at least planned as far back as 1998. So the person that the world sees as Charlie Kirk is fundamentally an actor, surrounded by actors. Anybody involved in January 6th, anybody involved in high profile mass shooters, politicizing these events, they're basically part of what I call the PSYOP entertainment complex. So it's good news as far as the conspiracy being that a lot of the bad things are actually fake. But it's bad news that the conspiracy is so big that none of the conspiracy theorists have figured this out yet. And we're not conspiracy theorists, just to be clear. I don't believe in any of those conspiracies. In fact, I debunked them all. From QAnon to chemtrails to simulation theory to false flag theories, mind-controlled assassin theories, all fake. Jamarian May says, Tim, don't the Freemasons, Shriners, Oddfellows perform rituals in their temples where they perform plays? It seems like a lot of psyops or plays. Yeah, if you really look at what the degrees are in these systems, it's just theater. And the initiate is in a role. And these are how they communicate the mysteries. The mysteries are basically theater. We used to refer to this channel, this is like Mystery Science Theater 3000, where a captive group are forced by sadistic aliens to watch bad science fiction until they go crazy. And I'm like, that sounds like us. That sounds like all of us, humanity, that we're a captive audience and we're forced to watch bad science fiction till we go crazy. And people are fundamentally crazy now. Visually illiterate, can't tell real from fake. We're pretty much crazy as a society, as a species. But the show Mystery Science Theater is about these captive audience members who didn't go crazy because they made fun of the movies. They threw popcorn. They weren't caught up in it. And that's kind of our position. But yeah, those rituals are certainly done in that way. I was thinking I might not be able to talk very much longer about some of the esoteric stuff because I'm thinking about joining one of these clubs and I'll be sworn to secrecy about certain things. So I may just have to confine our conversations to news bending and history bending. And I won't be able to do any of the elaborate symbol breakdowns for the latest Super Bowl. And it's all obvious anyway. You can see the pagan elements if you want to see it. But we'll see. I haven't decided, but I've thought about it. I thought about doing a deep dive into one of these clubs. Isn't that what we should be doing anyway? Let's see what we got here. Dr. Base Ackworth says the point oh yeah, so what's the point? What's the point of being aware of the fact that there's only one government, that it's global, and that it has replaced and supplanted religion, and that we're entering a new age of collective brainwashing? Like, why does that matter? If it doesn't matter to you, then go back to your programming. We're not trying to proselytize. The only people we're interested in reaching out to are those who are already 80% there, who've already figured out how most of this works. Because we don't want people who are in the gray area in between. If you're 1 foot on the world stage, 1 foot off, we don't need you. And the reason why is that we are intentionally creating this schism. There has to be a hard break between alternative media and what I call off-world stage. There cannot be bridges. There cannot be fence straddlers. If you're still on the fence, like, well, maybe that's fake, maybe it's not, you're confused by definition. If you don't know real from fake, then go back to the world stage, the Truman Show, because we are not the same. You could look at the IPS think tank as the last refuge of true objectivism, if such ever existed. Objectivism is an unknown ideal. She wrote that book, Capitalism, an Unknown Ideal, because it never truly existed as a perfect system, because it was always the state, always this pre-existing set of circumstances that precluded a true free market laissez-faire. But objectivism has always been an unknown ideal because from its very inception, its founder, Ayn Rand herself, it filtered its perspective through media as though the reportage was more or less objective. Yeah, obviously there's bias and propaganda, but the simulated events, the fake events that steer our history, the worldview warfare being waged from day one, that was never entered into their perspective. So their objectivism is actually taking place in the subjective closed informational system of the world stage. But one reason you might want to know is simply situational awareness. Because when you recognize that there's two groups of people, there are the masses who are programmed, misinformed, and then there's the programming class, much smaller. So you're not one of the programmers. You can remain one of the programmed if you choose. I mean, there's no pressure, but there is an alternative here. The alternative would be recognizing the programming and not accepting it. So that puts us in the category of the deprogrammed. And the programming references the conformity to a false worldview. And when I say conformity to a false worldview, it's like that's the default position that everyone has is that the world that we're in today presupposes the validity of every bit of reportage going into the past, assuming that if it were fake, it would have been reported, it would have been noticed. Why would people suddenly be unaware of well, people know what propaganda and programming is, but they don't know how extensive it is. What they specifically don't know, and what most conspiracy theorists deny, is that there is a relationship between mainstream entertainment and fake news events. Like, in other words, all of the mainstream entertainment is being used by government for the purposes of government psyops, psyop reinforcement content, mind control through influence operations that are taking place just on whatever you're watching on TV that night. Everything's got a political agenda. And I don't know if it's illegal or not for them to deluge us with propaganda under the guise of it being entertainment, but at a minimum, it's nice to know that all of your favorite directors and writers are sellouts. And also, if you're not bothered by the premise that you and your loved ones and your family are brainwashed, you're born as brainwashing, and your subsequent generations are all going to be brainwashed, then this isn't really your purview. And it's not like we're opening our doors to Normieville. If your perspective is like Chat GPT's perspective, if it's Wikipedia's perspective, if your perspective is mainstream, then we don't have any commonalities when it comes to media analysis. He says, we know this. What about? I don't think you do. I don't think you do. How many people died at 9/11, in your opinion, for example? Is Charlie Kirk dead or alive? And these aren't minor things, because your answer will tell us your frame of reference. And if your frame of reference is in the mainstream or alternative box, then you're in this closed system. You're in their Truman Show, that your perspective is resting upon an edifice of bullshit, fakery, bent news, bent history, propaganda carved into stone, history, manufactured history. I don't think I'm stating the obvious. You say I'm stating the obvious. What are you talking about? You realize that nobody agrees with us. I mean, if you agree with us, then yeah, good for you. But no, this is not something that's agreed upon. The consensus on the mainstream is that all of these correspondences between entertainment and events are coincidence, and the events are real. The alternative will say, well, the events might be fake, but there's no relationship with this entertainment content that seems to reinforce it and mirror it strangely. A lot of people are hung up on not seeing this, but the significance of it is nearly impossible to overstate. So no, this is not stating the obvious. If it was obvious by definition, a lot of people would know about it. But no, people actively and aggressively reject this information. They don't want to even go a few steps further. Like, for example, do you believe that Donald Trump got his ear pierced by an AR-15 in Butler, Pennsylvania last, summer? And answer these questions if you care to. How many people died at these events? Did Trump get his ear pierced? And did Charlie Kirk really die? Because your answers will determine whether or not you can even consider yourself to be existing in objective reality or totally brainwashed. Commenter says, so what are we discussing here? Well, you're not really making any points. Like I'm saying here, this isn't for everybody. Like, if you already know everything, then go back to watching wrestling and drinking beer. Like, we're actually involved in consolidating a body of information in such a way that we can make this intelligible. But I don't understand this, like, almost this rejection some people have to even talking about it. Like, why are you trying to gatekeep us, bro? Go back to Normieville. You've got options. You got Woketown, Normieville, Truthville, Q Street, if you like the hard stuff. Alex Jonestown passing out free Kool-Aid. Like there are a lot of places you could go for programming. This is a place for deprogramming. And deprogramming is an active process because unlike alternative and mainstream, this isn't passive news consumption. There is no platform for skeptical active news consumption. And what we're doing here is observing real time the effects of fake news on the news cycles and therefore on worldview. We're studying the programming as it's beamed into the minds of the programmed. Commenter says they weren't even occupied buildings. Okay, so you figured that one out. And okay, so you know that these things are fake. Okay, good. Like I said, if you figured it all out, then you don't need to be here. What we're doing here, though, is we're taking that information a bit further. Like, if fake, then what? Like, you're just going to call it fake and call it a day? That's the standard procedure in Truth or Dare. Oh, it's fake. Don't be distracted by it. Don't give it your illusion. Look away. It's like, what do you mean? We're pointing out instances of malfeasance and fraud, and you want us to not look into it? And if you don't have the curiosity to go any further, then you may as well stay in the box with everybody else. Don't you want to know what's behind it? Leo the Squib says, the throat thing, is it about telling secrets? Yeah, I've been thinking about this. So they shot Kirk in the neck, and then you had that movie that came out, Americana, with the guy shot in the neck, and we were talking about the symbolism of it and how it ties into the No Kings protest, the crown jewels being stolen, the corresponding Netflix with Marie Antoinette's necklace being stolen, she having lost her head, Charlie Kirk talking about the execution with Tyler, where somebody lost their head. So I'm not sure, but it almost sounds to me like it's a class warfare thing, and it's referring to the guillotine. I think that might be it. And then also, when Kirk's neck was shot, the blood spilled on his shirt that said "freedom," which I kind of gave me Braveheart vibes. And if you remember, Butler was all about Braveheart. Trump's fight, fight, fight pose was a remake of the Braveheart poster. We've broken down the symbolism pretty deep in that one. And Mel Gibson's connection to PSYOPs in general as a meta scripter, from The Patriot opening with the 9/11 reference where he sits on the chair and it collapses. I'm not going to get into all the Mel Gibson stuff, but I'm pointing out that it would be on brand for Kirk to have this built-in Braveheart reference, where at the end of Braveheart, of course, he screams freedom as he's being disemboweled, as he's being executed. Yeah, Leo the Squib, you're talking about the penal code, but there's 3 penal codes. There's like one for each degree. I think one, they rip your intestines out. Another one, they rip your heart out. Another one, they cut your throat. And those are kind of ubiquitous. Those are in all the different groups. They all did the same thing. I mean, it could very well be that. Like, is there, as there was the JFK assassination, is there a lot of Masonic stuff surrounding Charlie Kirk? Well, Trump called him a master builder. It took them 33 hours to catch the shooter named Tyler. And Tyler's the armed guard at the entrance to the lodge. Commenter says, people for the most part complete morons. See, I disagree. The smartest people in the world are also programmed. I just think that their worldview is shaped for them by forces that are out of sight, out of mind. And there's no way to really reality test a lot of these claims. So people are just habituated to believing things that come through what I call see-say. It's kind of like hearsay, but you see it. I saw it on the screen, so it's true. But the point of this too is we're talking about a philosophical crisis. We're talking about psychoepistemology. People cannot tell real from fake. They cannot process the information that they're getting from mass media without heavy doses of cognitive dissonance. Like, I think this is slightly problematic and worth talking about. At least as far as a philosophical organization, which is what this is. I mean, we're not activists. I'm not saying go march, tell people to wake up. No, not at all. I'm an inactivist. This is completely ivory tower. I don't believe in getting involved. We're outside the political horseshoe. I don't believe in voting for any of the bread and circus clowns. But what we have done here is we have consolidated a good number of people who are very well aware of the long-term effects of mass media manipulation, this worldview warfare. And what we're getting at now are specific data points that allow us to stand on this premise and say, yeah, our history, your history book, look at the last 100 years in it, our history is manufactured long in advance. And what does this mean? Again, you have to dig deeper. If true, then what? Well, if true, it's happening on a global scale, kind of like the space program. If it's happening on a global scale, then what does it say about nation states? What does it say about various countries? Are there even countries? Are there separate governments? Or do we already have a one world government? And is this its church? Is media its church? And I'm saying, yeah, absolutely. That we already have this one world order that everyone is talking. It's like the new world order is not only already here, but it's not new. It's the old one, and they're updating it. They're blending it using science fiction and merging it with the old worldview. So it's still pagan, but it's like pagan sci-fi. It's like Scientology. NASAtology is what you could actually call the world religion. Good night, Cake Crash. Appreciate your comments. Commenter says the game plan is simple. Keep the cattle full of confusion and outrage. Weeks from being homeless. Pretend we have the solutions. Rinse, repeat, rule. Yeah, pretty much. The idea here is, and this has been talked about for a long time, the idea here is the superstitions maintain the cohesion of the Roman state. The bread and circuses is actually a form of government, or entertainment is government. And yeah, it sounds like it's common sense, but it's really not, because we're getting into specifics here. Like what I'm talking about are lists of well-known directors and writers that we can point to who are involved on some level of contributing content, predictive programming content, product placement content for fake events. In other words, our manufactured history, which is an expression of the power elite's monopoly on worldview, it is the de facto religion. We can see who serves this system. This is a fully realized conspiracy. It's evidence of an incontestable power that is so sophisticated and so vast that, yeah, most people can't even see it. They stay in their little Truman Show. But there's not a platform for those who can see it. Like I said, there's two categories of people, the programmed and the programmers. Deprogrammed is a relatively new category. But I don't think you can say you're deprogrammed just because you know the news is fake. I think the deprogramming means you have to fully detach from the program itself, which is the false world view. And it doesn't mean I can replace it and tell you what's behind all the lies. But what I can say is that you're going to have to embrace agnosticism, questions, known unknowns. And you're going to have to take the position of the informed disbeliever. And this is a completely separate category of thought than news believers, mainstream or alternative. Believers, non-believers. Non-believers are not platformed on the world stage. They're put into padded cells. They're demonized. Their motives are impugned. They're not taken seriously. So what happens when a platform opens up for them? That's what we are spearheading here. And we've been doing this for some time, and the numbers are bigger than you would think. Especially because I've been kind of laying low. Like right now, I'm kind of like literally laying low. But that's not the way this channel has traditionally run. Hey, thank you, Marcel. 5 blue wrenches, Slow Boy Whiteboard, Sovereign Gamer Troublemaker, Todd Jones, and Nothing is Coincidence, along with McDirtyWork, have received the blue titanium wrenches. You'll find them on your front porch. Usually around 2. The UPS will drop them off. Isn't IPS the new paradigm? Well, that's one of the things too that I've been I've known this for some time. I've known this since 2022. I realize that what we represent is a significant marketplace disruption, that it's a disruptor, that this is a paradigm shift, that you could look at the world stage model as we describe it as as Plato's cave. But it's more tangible. But it's useful to think of it as a model, because if you don't see the model and you can't articulate it, you can't really step outside of it and recognize that the model's incomplete. The fact it's a closed system means it's incomplete. It's closed to what? It's closed to the very information that would cause you to not believe it to be objectively real. For example, media fakery, news bending, psyops. Crisis actors aren't even officially considered to exist. It's a conspiracy theory. So what we bring into it, the off-world stage perspective, is we're informed about the world stage, which exists in the minds of the programmed, but we also add on to that our broader understanding of how it was made, how it is made every day, and what it rests upon. And it rests upon many, many years of fake events, staged historic events. Again, these are put out there for the purposes of this curated history, which is our worldview. You see, if you think about what fake history does, it inserts things that aren't real into our collective frame of reference so they can be played off of. Again, this is Baudrillard's hyper-reality, fully realized. This is an example of this merging of real and fake to the point where there is no meaningful distinction. If you're a world stager, there is no meaningful distinction. But you have exposed the model and have offered very precise methodology for examination. Yeah, exactly. What we're doing here is, first we're articulating it, and then we're going to deconstruct it. This is a deconstruction. Tim, bring back people wearing IPS media badges on the streets. Yeah, exactly. Well, what I intend to do here, because I have this book out, it's called Handbook for the Recently Deprogrammed. It's like the netherworld. You're in a new world. And the subtitle is A Skeptic's Guide to the Theater of Psywar. So my objective here is, and that's why I'm kind of mobile at the moment, is I want to distribute the books in the context of small book discussions with specifically invited guests, other content creators, interviews, basically creating a body of content around these ideas. So what we have here is we have the model, the world stage. We have the concept of the program, which I term the meta script. And we have ways of what I call hoax indicators, of discerning whether something is fake or not just by looking at the screen and saying it looks fake, but by looking at the broader context in which it's inserted into our collective awareness. And in addition to understanding it, seeing it, and taking the perspective of off-world stage, which is essentially applied skepticism, some agnosticism, it's an objective standpoint. In addition to this, our next objective is to impose our standards of evidence on what we term trutherville. Like, I don't tolerate truthers trying to say it's a false flag. I always say, what do you mean false flag? Are you saying people really died? What's your evidence? Like, we have to impose our standards. And what the purpose of this is that a lot of the people, like, that's what I'm saying, people aren't dumb. The people who are stuck in the mainstream paradigm are not intellectually deficient. Like, we're not super smart and that's how we got here. We're just basically normal, average people who've thought about this problem, who've examined it, We're talking about empirical research. And there are a lot of people who have been caught up because of rhetoric, sophistry, logical fallacies, issues that have been guardrailed by the special interests who are preserving the integrity of mainstream illusions, what I term guardrails, people who stubbornly insist that people die at psyops. Well, once you break down these guardrails, once you provide a better model, what do you think is going to happen to a lot of these people who are seeing through the program for the first time clearly? Not the fake red pill awakening, but I'm talking about who have a paradigm shift or shock, depending. What I anticipate is that this third branch of media, of which we are the core, will then expand on the basis that we've established. Off-world stage, recognition of news bending, history bending as the real conspiracy. And as this grows, so too will our ability to deconstruct. Like, we're already a fake news wood chipper, but when we get our numbers up, you'll see. Because I'm thinking there's a lot of people who are held back in these intellectual cul-de-sacs that will essentially be liberated, and we're the only place to go. They're not going back to mainstream. They're going to come over here. And then what are we going to do with it? Well, that's where we bring this to them. This is, again, the mainstream and the alternative are a duopoly. They're not challenged skeptically. One side skeptical of the other, vice versa, but they're in their closed system. They're not really equipped to handle this because their operatives, their agents, their propaganda disseminators are not apprised of the true purpose of fake news or the extent of it. They're not in the know. We've tested this. I was interviewed by Mick Media a few years ago, and they seemed alarmed at what I was saying. In fact, they had a psychiatrist come on and say that I was anti-authoritarian. It's like, oh, is that a bad thing? But they were talking about the danger of people no longer trusting media and why it's such a problem. And I'm like, yeah, that's not our problem. But what I realized speaking with her is that this is a compartmentalized system. And even the propaganda disseminators are programmed. You're not going to find like a large group of people who are completely out of this thing. No, it's super compartmentalized like every other. Commenter says, mainstream media lies to your face, tells you. No, I would disagree. You know, people say the news is obviously fake, they're lying. I don't think so. You're speaking from your own limited perspective, but you have to remember everybody believes this crap. Everybody believes that Charlie Kirk is dead. Like the percentage of people who don't hold that opinion it's minuscule. We're not a blip on the radar. We don't move the dial. We don't exist. And the reason we don't exist is not because we're censored, because they don't acknowledge this. This is off-world stage. So you may say it's obvious to you, it's common sense to you. It's really not. If it really was, there wouldn't be 8 billion people marching lockstep with every single agenda, unquestioningly adhering to their paradigm, stuck in their Truman Show. No, it's not obvious. We shouldn't kid ourselves. Someone had said, the Trump thing was obviously fake. I knew it when I saw it. And I'm like, you know, maybe you're right, but it's hard not to be right when you're calling everything fake. But we have to qualify our claims. And with AI getting to where it is, you can't tell real from fake anymore reliably. I mean, I got fooled by a whale-sized clownfish. And if that's where we're at, then you can no longer rely on your eyes to tell you the truth. You know, we're being collectively subjected to a magic show, and we're gaslit. So if you're at a magic show and you don't get out of your seat, you're going to be fooled by every trick. So it's on us to decide to get out of those seats. If you're mainstreamer, you stay in the seat. If you're a truther, you might, I would say, come up with some conspiracies to explain how it's done, but you're still in your seat. That's what I mean by passive news consumption existing on both the mainstream and alternative. Active news consumption implies that you're suspending judgment and critically examining the information. But what we're doing here is we're setting up a platform for people who do think, who do cogitate, who do suspend judgment and engage in applied skepticism. This has never been done before. And I'm not trying to change the world. I'm not trying to change anything. What we're doing here is we are essentially aggregating the people who've already figured it out. Like, people need to drop the notion that your objective is to wake people up. Like, that's a horrible starting point. Like, you can't. I mean, you could, I guess. But who likes proselytizers or missionaries? I look at missionaries, I just get sad. You know, Moonies, uh, Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, Scientologists. I'm like, I'm sorry that you guys had your souls taken. I'm sorry. I mean, maybe they like it, but that's not what we're doing. We are not trying to wake people up. Let the blue pill people slumber. Let the red pill people indulge on their fear porn, on their 5G phobia, misidentifying clouds, scared of their own shadows. Like, I really don't care. The victims of the mind war casualties are to be left alone. You know, I think that you're really fundamentally overestimating people. When I say the world's a stage, do you really think that's a common concept? Maybe people use it as a metaphor, but like when we say, okay, like maybe you're not paying attention, but conspiracy theories in general presume everything's happening for real. Like, where have you been? Find me one big channel with more than 20 or 30,000 subscribers that adheres to the idea that everything is fabricated and written in advance. This is not a mainstream thing. This is not a popular idea. And there is no platform for it. So again, I really don't understand your perspective. I mean, I get it that you figured something out, but you're overestimating how many people are actually looking at it through this lens. And also, again, just to reiterate here, we're not actually trying to reach into people's heads and change their beliefs. That to me is just a waste of time. But no, this is actually new information. It's new information. The inclusion of fake events alongside false flag theory really didn't happen until 2012. It wasn't until after Sandy Hook that the conversations went from real or false flag. False flag is still real. So it went from real and real, a false choice, to now there's this third possibility that these events are simulated. And even those who have recognized these don't see how prevalent it is. They think, oh, this event's simulated, this one is, but this one's real. They think it's real or fake. They haven't figured out the extent of the fakery. And then beyond that, nobody has determined the purpose of sustained fakery, the long-term effects of it. So no, this is actually novel in that sense. If it's not, let us know. Like, recommend books, please. Recommend podcasts, because I want to know of anybody who has adopted an off-world stage perspective, a perspective which again takes into account systemic fakery and its long-term observed effects, and what it says about the present world and the consensus worldview. The purpose to the book was to put these ideas into one publication in one place where all of our points are being made. I'm not telling people what event is real or fake. I'm just describing how media operates and what its purpose is and how you can divide people into these categories. And it's pretty simple. And the political horseshoe theory is more than a theory. It's a model that they've built. If you lean left, you go woke town. If you lean right, you go red pill. And if you're a red pillar, you're actually in a subset of J pill. You're still woke right. And these categories are consistent and consistently observed. That's why, for example, Candace Owens and Laura Loomer are on two different teams. Like, I thought they were both conspiracy kooks. No, that goes to Candace because the red pill ideology is a subset of J pill, and Laura Loomer is neocon. And that's why, with the Charlie Kirk thing, Laura Loomer thinks that he was obviously killed by Antifa and probably funded by Muslims. That's probably her take because she's neocon. And Candace Owens predictably says, yeah, Netanyahu pulled the trigger. But yeah, just to be clear, you're new to the channel, so obviously I think that's what you're trying to convey here. You're new here, you don't know our purpose. Our purpose is thinking. It's a think tank. What we do is we examine ideas, we test them, we weigh them, and we engage in a bit of empirical research. We don't really do conspiracy conjecture, but we do spend a great deal of time examining conspiracies because, like this Charlie Kirk one, I've been describing it as well-paved rabbit trails with breadcrumbs being dropped at regular intervals by actors. I mean, a lot of people think Butler, Pennsylvania was real. Like, imagine thinking that that was real. If that's where you're at, you're in a bubble. You're in an alternative reality. And it made Trump fans bigger Trump fans. And that's what's so powerful about Trump himself. He's a walking, talking psyop. He's like the Midas touch in a way. Like, everything he touches is real. And it's like, at the time when Q came out, I was like, this is obviously fake. It's an anonymous source. You can't trust it. And they're like, no, but Trump's drawing a Q in the air. Trump's Q. I'm like, oh God. So they all got drawn into that. The guy's a magician. John Francis says Trump fans are more vitriolic than liberals at this stage, especially when you call out Daddy Trump. Well, it is true. I mean, I've witnessed it. I've seen the rift. I've seen divisions in family. I've seen families divided by religion. And that was a bad one. And then Trump. And it was like, okay, I see. Commenter says, you seem to be stating the obvious. You know, if I'm stating the obvious, how come nobody stated it before? Like, please tell me. Like, what I'm saying, for real. If this is obvious and you've heard this before, tell me where you've heard this. I'd like to know who has explained the Metascript concept or the entertainment and psyop relationships. Who has found the concurrent programming in mainstream entertainment and its conspicuous and consistent alignments? Like, who? Like, let us know. You keep saying what I'm saying is obvious. You've heard it before then somewhere. Tell us where. Tucker Carlson? Yeah, I watched the Tucker and Fuentes thing, and the only good thing in it or funny part was each one calling the other a Fed, and they both said they're not Feds, and they both laughed because they're both Feds. You know, it was a touching moment, but I thought it wasn't anything new. What original opinions does Nick Fuentes have? They're like, read My Awakening by David Duke and add some frog memes. There's no original thoughts there. It's the same thing with Candace Owens. Like, what new thoughts is she going to have? That's not her job. Her job is not to come up with clever ideas. And her job is to disseminate propaganda. Fuentes' job is to disseminate propaganda. And I don't know him. I listened to some of his stuff. I think that he's got some comedic value, which is why they hired him. They hired him because he can deliver the stuff and laugh. They don't want to say racial slurs, racist stuff, sexist stuff with vitriol and hate. They want to say it with a smile. They want to say it while laughing. It's sort of like soft selling it, but I think they're doing it that way strategically. Like, it's a steam valve. And at the end of the day, it's like, okay, so your white supremacist leader is this 30-year-old virgin Mexican who lives in his mom's basement. So it's almost like they're neutering the bad guy they created. It's just entertainment at this point. And if you believe Fuentes, Well, then where are you on the world stage? Well, you're in J-pill. You're basically you're in the red pill community in a sense. Well, you're immersed in that, but you're actually in the pre-existing paradigm where everything is blamed on Israel. It's woke right. Like woke left blames everything on whiteness. Woke left is like white did this or systemic racism killed George Floyd, but woke right blames everything on Israel. Each claims to be oppressed. Frontes is a griper, and I call them gripers because it's just grievance politics. Like the reason we're incels is that the Jews made the women go to work and now they're corrupt and they're not having babies. We can't control them and they're taxpayers. And it's just like, what? Who stopped you from what now? And now you're an incel because you can't get a trad wife, barefoot in the kitchen or whatever. Like they have this ideal that they cling on to that's the opposite of the progressive ideal. So this progressivism and traditionalism, and it's fascinating how you see it in every single issue. JD Vance was just talking about how aliens are probably spiritual things here on Earth, which is Tucker Carlson's thing. Aliens are demons. AI is a demon. A commenter says, no, I'm not saying on the first one pointing this out, but okay, first of all, I don't think you know what you're talking about. When somebody in the media points out, oh, look, this particular movie perfectly foreshadowed this event, their presumption is that the event was real. And for the last 20 plus years, since 9/11, the explanation has been that the correlations are the result of coincidence or the simulation. Nobody, literally nobody, has made the case that there is intentionality within government to hijack entertainment to reinforce fake events. Because the previous way these things have been interpreted is that these things are foreshadowing real events. So I don't really think you know what you're talking about if you're saying that this is novel or not novel. This is actually new because the general preconception is that the events are real and the foreshadowing is coincidence. Nobody has said these are literally being planned by the same entity. Like this is a new conversation. And if it's not, prove me wrong. Show me a book, show me a podcast, show me a channel that fits the definition of having an off-world stage perspective and is fully apprised of concurrent programming elements in the nightly news. Like, show me. I don't know how you got here, but if you have other similar channels that are saying the same thing and this is redundant to you, please share, because our objective here is to network with such channels. Yeah, I really think that you are a troll or something. If you think that this is like common knowledge and everybody's aware of it, I don't think you've been on Twitter. We spent the last few weeks debating people who are outright denying what we're talking about. Like you're saying this is obvious, but like, no, it's not. You go try to promote this idea, any of these ideas in mainstream or alternative, everybody's going to clown you. They're going to say that you're crazy and there's no correlation between entertainment and fake events. Like, no, these aren't well known and established orthodoxies anywhere. So anyway, I appreciate your comments. It's kind of interesting when we have someone who's like completely new to the conversation, and I don't mind it. And I definitely appreciate people who disagree and want to debate, because what we're doing is we are separating rhetoric from logic and finding out like what do people really know, what are their knowledge claims based upon. And what we're finding is that, yeah, people are in these predictable boxes and they respond in predictable ways. And not only that, but that there's a triangulation going on from Big Brother between alt and mainstream, but it's a duopoly. And that, again, just to reiterate, there is no platform for this perspective. That was my point. You're saying, what are you doing this for? Because there's no platform for it. You claim that you believe it's common knowledge and everybody knows. That's simply not true. There is literally one platform for media analysis that rests upon the notion of concurrent real-time history manipulation with long-term engineered fake events. There is no other platform with that as their foundational principle and stance. It's not there. Alt media is non-skeptical and it's passive. So again, I don't think that 99% of the people are sheep. I kind of resent that. A lot of my friends are normies. A lot of my friends are woke towners, red pillars. I don't have any J pillar friends, but I have friends across the spectrum of different levels of of immersion in media. And I don't think any of them are dumb. I don't think I'm like, do you think you're smart because you know the news is fake? Like, I'm sorry, that's not a very good litmus test. We're not the smartest people in the room. It's about perspective. And a good way to understand perspective in the way I'm describing it is everything on Wikipedia, everything on ChatGPT have the same perspective, which is whatever search results you put in, whatever queries you prompt with, the answers you're going to get are going to be built on the presumption that everything on the world stage and past and present is real. That's the framework they operate from. So that framework is what I call MSM, mainstream mediation. Now you have a friend who's deep into Q or deep into blaming Israel for everything. Okay, well, their perspective is what I call MSM plus. They see the mainstream, but they add on conspiracy stuff. So those are the two perspectives. There's no perspective outside of that box that's represented in any meaningful way on any platform. It's not censored. It's just not acknowledged. It never existed before. And so what we've done is we've taken the stance MSM minus outside the box. So no, we are not the smartest people in the room. We have a different perspective. The people who are programmed because you're born into it. It's immersive. There's no alternatives. It's actually a monopoly. Yeah, you can try to call in if you like. I don't know if it should work. Again, I appreciate your thoughts. I would suggest reading my book and informing yourself and then coming back. Because if you're really up to speed, then we want you. Like if you really have figured this out to the point where you can just throw laughing emojis and call it common sense, then we need you. You have no business merging with alternative media. You have no business not ganging up with us. Like, why would you want to waste your time anywhere else? Like, this is where you should be. Says we're stating the obvious. That's an echo chamber perspective. Like, yeah, it's obvious from here. That's all we talk about. But like, quite literally, no, there's not one single person in my life that has any cognizance of the fact that the world stage model is an internalized optional version of things, which is augmented with hyperstitions, which is 100% merged with fake events to the point where there's no meaningful distinction to be made between real and fake when it comes to what's on TV. And it's just getting worse. I mean, we're entering into a dark age. We're entering into a dark age. Think about the power disparity represented by illiteracy, where only the power elite can read and have education. Like, you can understand how that's a major disparity of power. What do you think's happening right now with the visual stuff, to the point where no matter how smart you think you are, you can't tell real from fake anymore? So this is about discernment, where you cannot rely solely on the visual because your eyes will lie to you. We're entering into a dark age. You might as well be blindfolded. And so I take the stance of the blindfolded skeptic. It's this concept that I've been using for describing how if you're going to tell somebody something's fake, You can't say it's fake on your own authority. You can't say it's obviously fake. I reject that. You can't say, oh, it's obviously fake. I'm so smart. Everybody else is dumb. It doesn't work that way. If it's fake, list your reasons. What are the 15 hoax indicators? You should be able to convince me an event was fake in a dark room. We're trapped in an elevator. It's dark. Convince me 9/11 was fake. You don't have recourse to video. You don't have recourse to audio. You can just describe the situation in its context. You should be able to pull that off. We certainly can. Well, that's what we aim to do. And that will be the standard as we go into the future. It says waiting for host. Okay, let me see how that works. So I'm on my Restream page and I'm kind of scared to push anything. Okay, there we go. Okay, I don't actually see you in here. I've got a Chief Crow song loaded up in here. Didn't know that. Let me know if you hear this. Lost Age says, though I don't think it takes high intelligence to see through news fakery on the surface, I think we're a little more intuitive than the average person. All right. So the calls aren't working at the moment. Maybe it's because I'm on my phone. If you want to get my book, go to ips.monster and you'll see a picture of it. It's Handbook for the Recently Deprogrammed. And that's going to pay for the office space. So you see me kind of floating around. I'm like in a dark alley right now. I'm going to be getting into an office space. We're going to set up the 24/7 stream. And then we're going to begin the process. The infinite plan is entering a new phase. I'm really excited about it. Okay, you can hear that? Okay, then I can use that on the way out here. But so somebody brought up the press passes. So the next phase, exit the metaverse, enter the meatverse. IPS goes above ground. That's the next phase. And we have more than 190 press pass carriers. What I need to do is consolidate them, and we need to do some above ground discussions about the book, basically. It's all about the book. How much do you need to get it happening? Well, the office space that I'm looking at right now, where I can have a 24/7 stream going on, it's conveniently located next to my gym. It's on Moon Street, and I was going to call it the IPS Moon Base. And it's not bad actually. It's like a couple hundred a month. Internet, conference room, everything I need, and then the damage deposit. So the book royalties are going to get me into the office. It'll be either in a few days or in about 4 more weeks. Either way is fine, because by the time we get there, we want to hit the ground running, 24/7 stream. I've got AI agents, and the AI agents will be used to integrate the chat stream with the Discord server, which will be expanding. Our Discord server has 150 members right now. At its peak, we had 500, but we got 150 vetted. I'm talking full-fledged, full-blown auto hoaxers, media disbelievers. And what we do 24/7 is we engage with the Psywar, mind war deconstruction, and there's a lot of memeage going on. In fact, I just opened a room for memes. Commenter says, here we have the grift. What do you mean the grift? I've been doing this for 7 years. You know what? I pay for this with a lot of my art sales. Like if I was grifting, I wouldn't be doing off-world stage, which doesn't exist, as you seem to miss. If I was grifting, I'd be pushing chemtrail phobia. I would say, hey guys, they're going to raid all the stores because the EBT is going to be canceled next month. Buy my MREs. Oh, there's going to be a nuke. Better get your radioactivity medical kits. Get a Geiger counter. Get your 5G protective underwear so they don't sterilize you in your sleep. I'd be saying, get your horse paste, whatever, and get your malaria pills because Dr. Fauci's cooking something up. Oh, get your Bibles and your crosses because the deep state is satanic aliens and they're coming for your children. So buy bulletproof vests for your children. All available at my store. Like, no, if I was grifting, I wouldn't be doing off-world stage media deconstruction, which has a very limited audience, only that which I can personally aggregate, and it has zero alternative media support, zero support from big channels. And we have a loose network, and we have people who are auto hoax adjacent that we're networking with. But the fact that you would even accuse me of grifting because we crowdfund things tells us that you know nothing about the channel. When this channel started, we decided that the various topics needed to be blown up. We did billboards. We synced up with a daredevil in these publicity stunts. I mean, we've always been characterized by setting up events, art shows. So the idea that it's a grift to sell books, it's like, I'd be curious to see what you spend your money on. To think that selling books is somehow like a criminal thing or a grifty thing. Like what a foolish thing to say. But I mean, if you want to call me a grifter, then by all means, I'm a grifter. I'm like, I'm doubling down on a business model that has consistently left me living kind of bare minimum. Like, no, if I was grifting, I would be back in telemarketing. Like, if money was my main preoccupation, I would be selling stars and Hulu subscriptions to retirees. Like that's what I'd be doing. I'd be doing customer retention for like any of these streaming networks. I mean, there's so many jobs I could be doing, but no, that's not my primary thing. So anyway, we appreciate your negativity, your nonsense, your ill-informed opinions. I think it's perfectly valid. Express your opinions. Like, I'm not here to shut anybody up, but I'm just saying that most of the people here, if not all of them, know more than you do about the channel's purpose, its history, and what I'm doing here. So you just come off as uninformed. It's not like you scored any points. Oh, he called me a grifter. Like, if I'm a grifter, I'm a really bad one. To me, a good grifter is someone like Candace Owens. You know, someone who's really got a position by pandering to the system, by conforming enough to make it about the money. So no, clearly this is not about the money. But anyway, I'm not all that interested in that person's opinions. I was just bouncing off of them because when you're confronting the wider public, you have to know that they're going to have low information. So we got to know, what are the low information takes? Like, I know the informed takes. I know how to debate against people who claim that we're engaging in selectivity bias, that we're leaning into our pattern recognizing monkey brains and drawing conclusions from nothing. I know how to refute those metabunk level claims, but low info takes also need to be dealt with. Like, I know nothing about your channel. Listen to my uninformed opinions about it. All right. Anyway, it's funny. It's funny. I can't wait to take calls, because people who are opinionated are fun to talk to. And if they're reasonable, then you can be productive with it. I don't care about agreement. I care about intellectual honesty and the IPS think tank is about that. Like if this was about money, if this was about a grift, I'd be pushing anti-vax. You realize how against the grain we are? We're the anti-anti. We're not only anti-pro, we're anti-anti. We don't take any of their positions. Truthers hate us. Truthers get mad at me all the time. Like, how dare you call stuff fake? What about when the troops come to your door? What about when things go kinetic? What about? I'm like, I'm not worried about any of this stuff. You're just pushing your terror propaganda that you've internalized onto me like a programmed propaganda mule. Like I'm slamming the door in your face like you're a Jehovah's Witness. Like I don't need proselytizers from the world state church, mainstream or alternative. You know, we flushed out the Mendoozlers, the chemtrail people. Like, no, we're so against the grain that it's kind of laughable to suggest that this could be a grift. But yeah, the reason for the office is that, which is I had an office space and things moved, but it was overpriced. There were homeless people, which I don't mind, but somebody had broken my window, and I just thought, okay, better location. So the reason for the office space, we got sidetracked by a guy accusing me of grifting because I'm going to rent a closet with a Wi-Fi connection, is so that we can turn on the 24/7 stream. And the 24/7 stream consists of selective archives played on a loop, updated regularly, with a live chat integrated with an AI bot that enlarges the conversation by integrating with Discord. And everyone in the think tank wants this to happen. So the idea that it's a scam of some kind is ludicrous. Like, what do you mean? Like, someone wants to throw in money because they see this as accelerant, that we're putting gas in the tank, that there's stuff happening that is of interest to us, especially when you realize that, again, contrary to what you seem to indicate, this does not have a platform. And so where are we going to go if we don't have a platform? I'm not going back to Trutherville. I'm not going to Q Street. Thank you, Blap Blap. So you might be a lucky recipient of an Infinite Plane Society membership. Just click allow gift memberships. So Nicholas, Till, King, TL, KGV, WMB, and Glenn Bush have all received the coveted titanium blue wrench. You may not know the history of the blue wrench and when they went red, but when this channel started, okay, I'll check Discord. When this channel started, we were attempting to move the conversation outside the parameters. Oh, okay. Okay, that's a mess. We were trying to move the conversation outside the parameters of mainstream thought, including alt mainstream. And the way we did this is we designated everybody who was on the same sheet as us. Like if you knew that nobody was dying, if you knew that NASA's a fat liar, then you got a wrench. And the objective was, let's maintain the integrity of our think tank by purging everybody who's not with it. So if somebody comes in uninformed, they get the wrench. We whack them. They end up in the dungeon. If they're legit and they want to be a part of it, they could email me and we pull them out of the dungeon and give them a wrench. So now they are locked in. So over time, we had thousands of people confined to the dungeon, many of them sex bots. So a lot of these trolls are down there with sex bots, just forgotten. But those who were legitimately interested would email me and I'd pull them out of the dungeon. And at one point, we had more than 400 blue wrenches populating the IPS chat. And this is before you had memberships on YouTube. So we created a de facto membership situation of pre-vetted participants, and we did not allow anyone else in. They couldn't get a word in without getting banned. And a lot of people hated it, but it's like, well, we didn't need your input. We don't need your noise. We want to have a healthy signal to noise ratio here. Everything outside of this think tank is noise. So the model here though was the blue wrenches were there to crush trolls. The IPS was like an armed society is a polite society. And when we took up the wrench, we had polite discourse. And we have been rolling forward on those grounds ever since. People send me, when I have an address published, people will send me blue big pipe wrenches. I got a collection. I got one in my truck for self-defense, one by my bed, carry one in my pants, pant leg. No, not really, but we essentially do. All right, I'm not seeing callers coming through, and I think it's because I'm on my phone. So I left my laptop behind. I basically jumped out of a burning building. And so I'm now here at the edge of town. But I am going to acquire a new one before too long. This channel, this think tank, this whole thing moves forward solely on the wishes of its participants. And it's not just primarily a monetary driven thing. Like money isn't the main thing. The main thing is our thinking, our thoughts, our published opinions and thoughts and our conversations that have gone through many permutations, evolutions, debates. They've been scrutinized. And, we've had a lot of, schisms here and there. Like, how many months we fought over whether or not Gage Grossarm literally had his bicep blown off or if it was squibbed by Kyle Rittenhouse. And I'm only a little ashamed to admit that I thought it was real. I was on Team Rittenhouse. I thought it was cool that this kid ran down a violent mob and started shooting pedophiles and burglars and stranglers, like just bad guys. I was like, this is a cool story. Like I was with Team Rittenhouse. I wanted it to be real. I thought, how cool is that? He shot the guy's bicep off. And then, we had some people saying this can't be real. I'm like, well, how is it faked? So then someone's like, well, it could be a closed set. They could have filmed this in advance and superimposed it. So we started breaking it down. And over time, we started looking at the anomalies. We pulled our emotions out. We pulled out what we wanted to be true. And we started to see this as, okay, Kyle Rittenhouse is a world stage character. He was 17, white hat, front row at a Trump rally. Everything about it was just phony. But it looked real. And that's when I realized we had a problem. That things are looking real. And what does that mean? When things look so real that you can't tell. We can't just get into an argument over opinions. We got to have data points. We got to have reasons for our claims. So we've upped our game over the years. We've refined our methodology. So 7 years of this nonstop has culminated in a lot of blog posts, a lot of shorter books that I consolidated and I updated and put into the handbook for the recently deprogrammed. So that book is basically a byproduct of the IPS think tank. It's not like I would have come up with everything on my own. This required bouncing ideas around. This required a lot of conversation. And the book is 311 pages long, published on September 12th. I was aiming for the 11th. I thought 9/11, 3/11, it would have been cool. But it came out right on time for the Charlie Kirk event. Ribo Nation says, just bought the book on Amazon. Hey, thank you. I'm going to be purchasing 50 copies, signing them, and taking them to a few different cities. And we're not doing big, expensive conventions or renting places. I'm more interested in small scale bookstores, and there are plenty. And I might kick it off here. But the plan is, and this is a plan that I've had since I put out Auto Hoaxology 101, but this book is far more marketable. But the plan is to go to a few key places and begin a process of creating content around the debate that we've brought up. Because no, it's not obvious. It's not in the open. It hasn't been brought up. It has not been properly acknowledged. And not only that, but the fact that this is true, that we are correct about it, isn't just something to say, hey, we know better, everyone else is dumb, because that's not true. The approach that we should be taking here is we're standing upon a perspective that is verifiably a better model than what they have. And we should therefore weigh the merits of each in public debate. And what I'm planning here is essentially what you would call a book tour. But each of these places I'm planning on going to are places where I know people. So I'm not going to have to worry about certain things. Like if I want to have a box of books shipped somewhere, I can arrange somebody to receive those. So I'm working on the logistics of it, but it's not going to be that difficult to pull off. And financing it, as far as the traveling, the gas, will largely be done through the Zoom conference. The Zoom will be used to allow people to join in on the Q&A, even if they aren't there physically. So you'll have the physical people and the metaverse people, the Zoomers, the Zoom people. It will also be live streamed on YouTube, because I can use Restream to blast Zoom, but the only people who will be participating in the Q&As at the live event will be on Zoom or in person. A number of people have expressed interest in meeting up and having tabletop discussions about these things. Where will I publish it in Audible? For the time being, I only have it as a paperback, and I want to just personally go around and read chapters. I don't want to do Kindle. I don't want to do audiobooks yet. We want the handbook to be a handbook, not an earbook. Not that I'm opposed to audiobooks, but we want this to represent the move into the tangible. We're combating hyper reality, the fusion of real and fake, bred in circuses. And I think one of the best ways to represent it is a physical, tangible book that they can't delete. They can't flag it. They can't thumb it down. Like you can burn it, but it leaves a bit of a mess. So no, it's almost like, I think there's also it ties into our ethos here with the whole insider tabloid, where we want the above ground because no one else is going there. You realize a lot of these people who make crazy claims, crazy conspiracy theories, they only exist on the internet, and they're one fake EMP away from not existing anymore. But the tabloid and the book and the press club, we can survive that. So if there's a big shock to the system, if they lock it down for disease X, it's too late. This particular genie's already out of the bottle. The toothpaste is out of the tube. But to get to that point, we not only need to have this separation. This is a separatist thing. We need to separate from alternative, but those who have separated from the separatists need to have a common lexicon, a common understanding. So yeah, we all may agree, hey, everything's fake and that's not good enough. We have to be able to say, we are distinctly operating from a different perspective, and it's different for these reasons. It's different because we are inclusive of this extraneous information involving media fakery, long-term, short-term, and how it's done. It's different because we are also recognizing that there is a direct relationship between big entertainment and the PSYOPs themselves. So the PSYOP entertainment complex thing is also something that, again, this term PSYOP entertainment complex didn't exist until we existed it. So the person who was in here ranting about how we're just stating the obvious, it's like, Maybe, but it hasn't been codified. That's the big distinction here. We have codified it. We've put it into our own collection of writings, tantamount to a Bible. I mean, you can't launch a new denomination without having your creed, your particular take on things. Like, this is what we are nailing to the door. Like 33-year-old Martin Luther nailing the 95 Theses to the door. That's what this is. This book is meant to be a challenge. It's something that is being imposed standards wise. But if we're not all on the same sheet, if we're not using the same lexicon, we're not going to be able to consolidate as a self-aware, separate demographic. And that's what we're doing. What's up, Anime Gematria? Thanks for joining. Now, as far as will I publish it to Audible, what I will do, there is a playlist on infiniteplane.live. If you go to the playlist, it's a lot of AI content that I made, but it actually draws from the book. I made it while I was doing the final edit. But I do plan on using these events to read select chapters. And I think that reading the chapters and then with the whiteboard illustrating what we're talking about, because this does require infographics. Like there's a nuanced take to it when we're saying that the world stage is a closed informational system and it forms the consensus perspective, but within it there are subsets. And when you diagram this, Venn diagrams, you can see that our model holds true, that this model is in fact designed to be this way. You know, most people's opinions are manufactured, not that they're not thinking, but that their options have been carefully curated and the pitches have been made in very specific ways. It's all very well made. I mean, we are looking at a very sophisticated system that creates a singular worldview with very little deviation. Plain Dakota says, what happened? I left for a bit. We just been here, just talking and trying to explain to a noob how it's not obvious. Like, it's not common sense. And what we're describing here is so against the grain that it's not platformed. In fact, I would say it's not that it's not understood or not known, but it's the big secret. All the conspiracy theories are fake. This is a successful conspiracy, not a conspiracy theory. And it's a vast conspiracy so big that people stuck in Trutherville just can't see it. You have to have what NASA calls the overview effect. You got to go far enough away to see the Earth in its entirety, to fully internalize what it means to be on a finite, fragile sphere that's essentially under assault by humans. Like, you have to have that perspective from a distance, and that image of the blue marble really catalyzed the environmentalists because they had this perspective. So the off-world stage perspective is the similar thing. It's this overview effect. $80 to get the book to your country, even on Amazon? There has to be a better way. Okay, you know what I can do? And I've done this before. I can list the books on eBay, because on eBay I have a better set of shipping options. They have a hub, and so yeah, let me do that. But yeah, I'm just trying to get you used to the notion here that we're going to be up late taking calls, and so I'm kind of getting my schedule adjusted for this. All right, let's see. So many interesting people in here. Thanks for all your comments. I appreciate your time and attention. The main project we're working on now is History Benders. So if you haven't seen Newsbenders from 1968, you should watch it. It's on YouTube. It's a documentary. It's a play. It's supposedly parody or satire, but no, it's actually literally true. And it's much worse than that. It's a really fascinating thing all around, especially when you look into these actors and who they are and what other roles they've had. You know, the guy from the Central World News Services, Donald Pleasance, he was the president in Escape from New York during World War III. And the guy who was being hired, who was being told about the news manufacturing, he was originally going to be the voice for HAL 9000, which would have been intriguing. You know, HAL 9000 shows you how far back they've been foreshadowing the AI thing, but giving it these ominous overtones. All good, man. Just want to make sure. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, I'm actually confident that this book is the thing that's going to get me back into an office space. It has been selling a consistent number of copies per day. And I think that it will have a pretty good run here. I think it'll sell pretty consistently. And I have a follow-up one that I want to do, another one that expands on the whole secret religion of the elite stuff, where I can separately focus on a lot of the more esoteric stuff and these things. But you know, really, I want to keep our focus on this history bending thing, because there's all these people who've looked into this. I mean, all this intel can be crowdsourced. We have these tools. We've got Perplexity AI. Get the pro version on a free trial for a year. And what I'm finding here is that we're able to go through this information quickly, and we're able to use these tools to create infographics. And these infographics are making it easy to articulate things that are actually very complex, that are oversimplified too often. Like, again, it's not good enough to say it's fake. That's a worthless opinion. I want to hear, here are the hoax indicators, and here are the best arguments against them. You know, there's no room for straw men. You know, straw man arguments have no place in the off-world stage perspective, which is rooted in skepticism. The skeptic doesn't dismiss the ideas they disagree with a smirk. They don't dismiss them in a weakened form, mischaracterized. The skeptic should be building the best case for the opposition, and then melting that steel man. Name Decoded says they had FaceTime and a mouse computer back in 1968. It was high speed and good. It was just like $7 million. Someone was talking about the consortium from the Dan Brown books who write the history. Like, this idea has been brought up a few times, but always in the realm of science fiction. There's a book called In the Country of the Blind by Michael Flynn. And it's about this cabal, the small group that have a supercomputer that allows them to make accurate predictions. And they essentially hijack control over history, over all media. But what they did is, as soon as they got control, the first thing they did is they wrote themselves out of history. They deleted it. There's no record in any of the history books of this supercomputer and what its powers were. And operating in secret, therefore, with this secret technology, they kept everybody in the dark. Meanwhile, they steered everybody. Plain Dakota says hoax indicator one. Oh, what is the hoax indicator? It's like hoax indicators would be things like, one of the primary ones I would say is if it fits a predictable template. Like, real life doesn't generally fit a template. If there are deviations in standard protocol, like the crime scene has no crime scene tape, no EMTs, or the body is just thrown in the back of an SUV, a stolen SUV or they didn't even know whose SUV it was, they said. Predictive and concurrent programming, those are hoax indicators. Okay, so for something to be released real time on Netflix to correspond with an event presupposes that the event was scheduled to happen that day. It's not luck, it's not coincidence. The intentionality would necessarily roll in that, not just it actually confirm it that yes, this was scheduled in advance. The question is how far back. But if it was scheduled in advance, even a day, then it's not real. It is therefore staged, because real events aren't scheduled. As far as spontaneous events, nobody's expecting these things. Nobody expected that to happen. No, well, that's what you're supposed to think. But the entertainment content that was released at the same time would alone be enough to say, okay, this thing wasn't spontaneous. But there are so many suggested hoax indicators that I can provide. I think I listed like 12 or 13. There's probably more, but you cannot say that something is real on your own authority. Your authority is what, an opinion? So what is your claim? Like, I think this event is real because I saw it on CNN. Like, that's really not enough. It might be if it's not an extraordinary claim and if there are no hoax indicators. But if there are, then it is incumbent on you to address the hoax indicators, to refute them. And if the thing's real, that should be easy. But when it came to this last thing, there were so many of them that I'm like, okay, if you're still thinking that this thing was real, then you just haven't done your homework. And if you haven't addressed these, then we're under no obligation to take your opinion as all that weighty, because a low info opinion doesn't weigh as much as a informed opinion that arrives at the conclusion that the thing was likely fake. And you don't have to be possessed of like a smoking gun, like, oh, this proves it was fake. No, if you have enough hoax indicators, reasonable doubt matters here. If you've got reasonable doubt, the burden of proof isn't on you. It never was anyway. So if you've got reasonable doubts, then I think it's safe to say that you can suspend judgment. And how long? Well, you're not obligated to believe something there's no evidence for. It's perfectly legal, it's perfectly fair play to say, I'm not going to believe the official version, so I have no reason to believe it really happened. Which is to say, it's fake until proven real. And fake until proven real sounded a little controversial, a little extreme when I used to say it. But since the advent of generative AI, if you're not approaching things as psyop until proven real or real until proven fake, you're behind. Like, your operating system needs to be updated. It's actually naive to think otherwise. And if you don't think it's naive to think otherwise, then how do you explain the fact that the consensus worldview is resting comfortably upon a big pile of provable lies? Substantial lies, substantive lies, lies that have a measured effect on how the consensus perceives reality. It's essentially, again, a religious paradigm. Plain Dakota says, big year, 1968. Yeah, 1968 was the year that 911 was designated an emergency number in America. You have a lot of big movies that year. 2001 Space Odyssey, of course. Kubrick, one of our finest meta scripters, who I don't think he died on that date. The day before, he died was like, it was after they screened Eyes Wide Shut. There's all this conjecture that they killed him because he was. But anyway, his death, I don't have the date. I'll have to ask Perplexity. but it was 666 days before the new year, 2001. I got to check the dates on that. The reason why people think his death was faked, though, is there's a clue in Eyes Wide Shut. It has to do with the author that wrote his obituary. I'll have to dig into it. There's quite a lot about Kubrick that's overlooked by people who give him credit for faking Apollo 11. It's like, it wasn't just Apollo 11. There's indicators that he is behind the JFK thing, that Oswald didn't shoot JFK. Stanley Kubrick did. Kubrick has his fingerprints on 9/11, one of the directors of 9/11. You could also add, I mean, how many others? I mean, I think Francis Ford Coppola had some part in it. These are major historic events, and they all want in on it. James Cameron, certainly. James Cameron is a major league meta scripter. I think he may have even done the Rodney King beating. Anybody care to guess how many times the batons connected with Rodney King? I mean, they swung a certain number of times, but you can look at this on Wikipedia. Over the 1 minute and 19 seconds, how many times was Rodney King hit? And it was filmed by George Holliday on his handheld camera, who happened to just be over there on James Cameron's movie set. And what was he doing? He was recording James Cameron filming Terminator 2. What's Terminator 2 about? Evil cop. Remember the evil cop? The cop's his villain. The cops are like the villains, and that's kind of like it was kind of a new thing where now the main bad guy is this cop. And so the guy who's filming this movie is walking home and he sees bad cops beating Rodney King. Yeah, they hit him 33 times. My point is, James Cameron brought this up. He said that his Terminator 2 movie, the video for that, it was the source video for the riots. And he said it in this duper's delight kind of way. Like he created this agitprop. If you look at the Tyree Nichols beating, it looks like it was filmed to match the Rodney King thing. So many of these fake events are traceable, I think, to the directors. Like, I think a lot of these big psyops were direct. Like, I would say the George Floyd, Derek Chauvin thing was probably directed by Spike Lee. And I think Jordan Neely was probably directed by Jordan Peele. Synchro Morpheus made the case for that initially. And I'm with that 100%. I think James Cameron had his hand in the Cop City riots. And I think he might be involved in a lot of the climate change stuff, the flood stuff. Like I think there's a lot of these directors have been like, this is a pattern. I mean, look at John Frankenheimer. You know, he invented the myth of the mind-controlled assassin, puts out the Manchurian Candidate, known to the Kennedys, been in the White House. He drove RFK to the Ambassador Hotel where he was killed by a mind-controlled assassin. Angst G said, just read Trump's planning to restart nuclear testing for the first time in 33 years. Okay, now, we don't make predictions like gematria calculator people do. This isn't a psychic hotline. So don't misconstrue this. But when you're looking at what is being pumped into the minds of the program, what is the general pattern here? Well, it precedes what comes next. There's a bit of foreshadowing. There's a bit of predictability built into a model where it does, in fact, lead up to events with consistent propaganda messaging and reinforcement. This is just a reoccurring thing. So you could look at the media landscape today and extrapolate from that. Well, what's coming next? For example, I went to go see Sinners, and I said, and I saw the trailer for Sinners, and I said, based on the trailer for Sinners, it looks like we're going to have a lot of race war psyop stuff. And what happened? Austin Metcalf gets stabbed by Carmelo Anthony. It gets totally racially polarized with GoFundMe. Then you had Shiloh Hendricks, and then you had the subway killing. But yeah, there were racial psyops. You had Rodney Hinton Jr. getting killed by the cops. Rodney Hinton killing the cop who had just served 33 years. So we talked about how the movies precede the fake events. A Mountainhead comes out based on Elon Musk about generative AI creating riots. And then what happens? LA breaks out to riots, fires everywhere. And then you got No Kings protests. So this is like a reoccurring pattern. So having looked at the media landscape, we can see how the public has been prepared for the advent of fallout, some kind of a nuke. So I don't think they can credibly stage a nuke in a populated area because these things are, props. It's a movie. So how are they going to pull this off? Well, for some time I've been thinking, well, look at how much they focus on fallout. So the most likely thing is it'll happen in some far off place, closed set, like a 9/11, but the fallout will be used as a pretext for locking everybody down or creating periodic lockdowns in different areas. I saw Laura Loomer selling first aid kits for like radioactive waste poisoning. And I'm like, okay, somebody knows what's coming. But anyway, that Hulu series, The Tempest, which tracks the death of Charlie Kirk, the career of Erica Kirk, and everything, it foreshadows nukes on the fourth episode. And I didn't really talk about it much because I don't want this to be misconstrued as we're making predictions based on Netflix, although we are making predictions based on programming. And when I say predictions, a better word is extrapolations. Like you got a climate model. Does it mean that you can predict the temperature and the weather everywhere accurately 100% of the time? Well, no, your model is it's the best possible guess based on the data, but it really kind of depends. I mean, we've had periods of time where we've had specificity, specifically when there's dates involved. Like the whole 3/11, we said World War III is going to kick off on 3/11. We said that Monday. So that Wednesday, when 3/11 pandemic declared Seattle, we had already said World War III is kicking off ground zero Seattle. The only thing is we thought it was going to be a nuke. We didn't know it was going to be a pandemic, which also has a ground zero. But my point is, we made that prediction based on Westworld, based on a ton of other predictive content. So it wasn't really so much, again, a prediction as much as extrapolating based on what the model has presented us, the world stage, and what preceded it. So could we have predicted there would have been an assassination? Well, yeah, we were talking about it. We were just wondering, is it going to be Trump again? That would be redundant. He doesn't die in any of the predictive elements. But I have some other indicators. I mean, I've talked about this. Where the Charlie Kirk thing, other indicators that, yeah, that was foreshadowed quite a long time ago. I've even arrived at this interesting kind of conclusion here involving JFK Jr.'s death and a video by Marilyn Manson that MTV delayed because it seemed to reference JFK Jr. I mean, it's really, again, kind of a rabbit trail here, but it contained many elements that we saw come into fruition with Trump and the Q movement. But anyway, we were talking about this because I went to revisit this video called Como White, where the singer portrays himself as JFK and how it's this new JFK thing happening. Only he's shot in the neck. And I thought, that's kind of weird. Why didn't he get his head blown off? They have the special effects. Why playing JFK did he get himself shot in the neck? And my contention here is that based on the script of the video, it was always about this idea of a new JFK. And so I'm wondering, could this have been foreshadowing for the Charlie Kirk thing? The timing of it, same year as Snake Eyes, seems to line up. And then I looked at the most recent release, which he's touring under, and it's about the JFK thing, One Assassination Under America. And so I looked at the tour playlists, and they play those two songs back to back. And I'm like, that's kind of an interesting coincidence that you have this band touring under this theme with a previous song that seems to have foreshadowing elements at the time of the assassination. So could that be considered, like predictive content, concurrent content? Well, yeah, because it's not just movies. We see this stuff prevalent in movies, in music, in books, in comics. Video games are huge for this, but also podcasts. I mean, a lot of people noticed that during the Charlie Kirk thing, Joe Rogan was talking to Charlie Sheen, who released his comeback video on 9/10 called Charlie, and they're talking about his comeback. Well, Kirk was on his America comeback tour, and they're just talking for a few hours about the JFK assassination, about Lee Harvey Oswald, about the time that Charlie Sheen was sniped, and Joe Rogan was like, that was such a good shot when the guy threw that thing from the balcony and hit you in the head. So you could say, well, these are all coincidences. There's no way they could be connected. Well, you're operating under the presupposition that there's not some overarching authority pumping the same propaganda elements through every conceivable vector. And that's what we've been pointing out. HG says, perhaps the nuke testing will be done in New Mexico. Isn't Alamogordo where they used to do it? Yeah, down there, White Sands, Alamogordo, southern New Mexico. Violet Penguin says, what about the Joker? He dies, and in Beetlejuice, he's in the underworld. Maybe another Alex Baldwin killed the director. 614. Yeah, oh yeah, that's right. Beetlejuice has Donald Trump in the underworld dead in a yellow suit, a gold suit with a flag lapel pin. And I showed that clip on Twitter to Tim Burton, and I said, okay, so you also created concurrent programming for the Trump Butler head wound. And those tweets were flagged for copyright. So I'm like, that's interesting. It's like none of these directors want to know that they happen to be prophets. No, I don't think they like being called out that they're actually contributing to mass psychological warfare. I mean, isn't this a scandal? Is it not a scandal that our favorite movie directors are actually waging psychological warfare on us? Pippi Langstruff says hornets are real. Yeah, this Robert De Niro dies. Okay, that's interesting. We got to mind map that one out. Robert De Niro dying in Joker. And then you got the Joker connections with Taxi Driver and Kings of Comedy. And then, of course, the Taxi Driver being the inspiration for John Hinckley Jr. shooting Reagan. It gets really intriguing when you see that then you got De Niro playing Senator McLaughlin in Machete, getting shot at while standing at a podium talking about illegal immigrants. And that was, again, Machete, about an illegal immigrant. I mean, it's pretty incredible when you see that a lot of the PSYOP promotion are done by actors who are still actors, even when they're not in their movies. If you see them, they're mainstream. Like I pointed this out to Fakeologists the other day. Jim Carrey was out talking about how half the country wishes they had Trump's head. Like, that's a big claim, but this happens in the wake of No Kings protest, the crown jewels being stolen, Marie Antoinette, again, decapitated, her necklace being stolen in the Netflix movie that was compared to the real life heist of the crown jewels. But it all ties into the decapitation stuff, the next stuff. I talk about Ryan Routh, the guy that tried to shoot Trump, attempted to Kirk himself in the courtroom and squib all over the place. He took a pencil and tried to stab himself in the neck. And if you look at the courtroom illustration, it's at the same spot where Charlie Kirk was shot. Plain Dakota says De Niro, Francis Ford Coppola's creation. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot to go into with Robert De Niro. There's a movie called Zero Day with him, where he plays basically Biden, like a president who should have won a second term and didn't, and then 9/11 gets New York again, or New York gets 9/11 again. And there's these like two subways that blow up, and there's this big crowd growing. Again, it's called Zero Day. And De Niro, this former president, is walking to the scene of this new terror attack. And this guy in the crowd says, "They're all crisis actors. It's all fake. Nobody died." And the mob gets like mad. Everybody gets mad and they all attack the auto hoaxer. I'm like, wait a minute here. New York gets savaged. Another 9/11. Subways are blowing up. People are dead underground. Some guy in the crowd says it's all a hoax. And instead of getting mad at the terrorists, instead of crying for the victims, they get mad at the guy calling it fake. That's like the opening scene. I was trying to get a good look at the guy. Maybe his shirt, like, because what they're trying to do, what they have done a few times, is they're just trying to make sure that the person who calls things a hoax is represented as just being a terrible person. Like, this is just some morbid preoccupation. We're just contrarians. We're just edge lords doing this for fun, and we don't care whose feelings we hurt. I was like, no, we're the only ones telling the truth. It's hilarious. It's hilarious that they have to misrepresent us. Like, conspiracy theorists are unhinged, crazy. They're digging bunkers. Like, conspiracy theorists have lost their marbles. The auto hoaxers, the media skeptics, we're the calmest people in the room. You don't see me marching. I don't have a Molotov cocktail. I don't have a sign. I'm not running up Capitol Hill in animal skins like that guy, the QAnon shaman. He's like, Q sent me. He's got a spear. They should have shot him on sight. You don't run into the Capitol with a spear. He probably smelled like roadkill. And they let him sit on Nancy Pelosi's throne. It was all staged, but for like months I thought that was Owen Schroyer in disguise. Spiritual Vapor DIY Ormus Element says, anybody seen Flood's funny video about C3K11? It's on FTJ Media called Billy Mace Miracle Neckbone. Your wife will never be sad again with the diamond neckbone with the power of Christ. No, it sounds amazing. Yeah, like Charlie Kirk's neck was a miracle. Remember, the bullet was stopped by his neck, and they said if his neck didn't stop that bullet, it's a miracle. He's a man of steel. If his neck didn't stop that bullet, it wouldn't have stopped. Apparently, the bullet had no intentions of stopping. Who knows how many people it would have killed? Probably would have killed everybody there, huh? But luckily, his neck stopped it. Yeah, his neck was made of the same stuff as Donald Trump's ear. Like literally, practically bulletproof. The same stuff they make passports out of. I thought if I was writing the script, I would have been like, hey, make Tyler Robinson drop his passport on the way to Dairy Queen. That's how we catch him. So there he's in Dairy Queen next to a Superman poster. And they say, yeah, Charlie Kirk is Superman because he stopped the bullet with his neck. An obviously ridiculous story, but they made it ridiculous because they want the conspiracy theorists. They want the conspiracy theorists out there to be under their control. So if you think Charlie Kirk is dead and someone other than Tyler Robinson did it, you're controlled right now by Candace Owens. Like, she's basically telling you what to think. Like, that's her take. It's the state approved conspiracy theory line. Like, you're eating her breadcrumbs. These people, like, they're all Sherlock Holmes on the internet, like armchair investigators. And like, yeah, we're treading new ground. We're going to find the truth. It's like, you realize those rabbit trails are paved. They were paved in 1963. You're not discovering anything. It's an old advertising trick where you may not be able to sell something to somebody, But if you can make them think that they're discovering it, a little reverse psychology, they will go for it. And what I find here is that a lot of truthers are contrarians. They're not going to just believe what they're told, but if they can discover it from themselves, they'll believe it. So what's happening is Big Brother doles out the mainstream version, and then instead of spoon feeding truthers, they just throw it on the ground, chicken feed. I'm like, as long as they collect it themselves, they'll believe it because they think they're getting valid information because it's not being spoon fed to them. It's all reverse psychology. Like, people really shouldn't be falling for this stuff. It's actually embarrassing. Like, if you think that he's really dead, okay, you're in the program. That's fine. But it's sort of embarrassing if you're a truther and you think he's dead. Now, if you're ambiguous about it, that's almost okay. I don't think it's okay anymore. Like, at this point, to say, I don't know if he's alive or dead, means that you don't believe the mainstream, but you don't know if you can go all the way and rest on the additional information. So it's not a very confident thing to say, I don't know, when there's enough information. At this point, I would say it's an appeal to ignorance. It's basically that, because there's more than enough information to conclude he's not dead. Again, I would cite the Erica Kirk conundrum. If you haven't dealt with that, your basis for claiming it's real has no legs. Like, you have to answer. Somebody's going to have to answer for that. Anybody out there claiming that we are not correct in our assessment, that is the new bar. Like, you're going to have to explain that away. How does an actress in a psyop continually mirror, plot point for plot point, a character on Hulu in a concurrent TV show that perfectly matched what happened to Charlie Kirk? Filmed in a place where Charlie Kirk had just been visiting the corresponding Republican group, but the real life version. I mean, this is unprecedented. This particular event, I said it before, I said this is going to have the socio and cultural significance of the JFK assassination. It's a big deal. You may not think so, but look at the demographics it's reaching. Like, this is a big one, but it's also very educational. This has been a great event. I mean, not since it's been a while since we've had some fake events with this many elements for us to use for instructional purposes. Observing Reality says CK will go down as the new JFK, where the game is hidden so you figure out the fakery. Yeah, how many shooters for JFK? How many careers have been made? Like, I know who really killed JFK. Release the JFK files. It's been 60 years. And they said, was he shot from the front or the back? Was it Jackie? Did she shoot him? Was it the driver? Was it somebody from the sewer? Was it Israel because JFK didn't want them to have nukes? Was it the mob? They have a long list of shooters. It's a template. That's what I mean when I say that the rabbit trails truthers are going down were paved in 1963. Or, I mean, was it 60, 62 or 63? 63. So I was looking at, oh yeah, that's right. 60 days before he was shot, he and Jackie made a home movie where he was shot. I would like to see that home movie. But now, when truthers were calling for the JFK files and the Epstein files, what do you think they were looking for? Yeah, the truth is JFK had a squib. Okay, so this is the thing that Candace Owens does. She never explicitly states it, but this is always the objective. This is the template that goes back to 63. What they mean to say is Israel did JFK. Israel did 9/11. Israel did fill in the blank conspiracy. All conspiracy theories lead to the same scapegoat. And that's what I mean by template. If they go that way, it's a narrative. It's not based on facts. It's a planted narrative. So they had this belief that that would be revealed, or they had this belief that the Epstein files would reveal that the Mossad compromised every politician and controlled America. Like, these are old canards, and it's stale. I think people need to update their conspiracy theories, but they won't. You see, Candace Owens will entertain anything, but she won't say it was a squib. All right, well, thanks for your time and comments. We'll continue this later. We're just kind of, I'm just getting a few things set up because we're going to get back into our open phones here very soon. And things will get a bit more interesting. Thanks for supporting the channel, buying memberships, getting the books. We're going to work on History Benders tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning, in fact, we're going to focus on, put my notes here, Robert De Niro and his connection with the whole assassination theme from Reagan to Trump. And he figures, this is interesting, Robert De Niro figures prominently in both the Trump and the Reagan assassination in the realm of predictive programming. So that alone is an interesting facet. So we'll get to that tomorrow. Violet says, neck spine connects with 33. Rudy Giuliani had a spine injury right before 9/11/25. Ooh, good point. Good point. The neck thing and the neck of steel and the neck stuff. Yeah, there's got to be some significance to the neck stuff, and there's quite a lot of it. It's beyond just what we brought out. All right, I'm going to see if this Chief Crow plays. I didn't know I had it saved here on Restream. So we're on a few different channels, and as I thought, it brought a few more people in.
My buddy and me. Telecommunications Act of 1996. 96, y'all. Gonna filter your eyes and scrub your mind. The weatherman, he's just another bad joke. You can be a doom little donkey like Eeyore. I'm gonna be on auto hoax, and it feels so good. You just auto believe everything like I knew that you would. In my dream, you know I ain't got time for another crisis actor with soulless eyes.